Welcome to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Here on the Orange Nerd Show, we talk about everything except the theme parks. Today, specifically, we are talking about the cultural phenomenon of K-pop Demon Hunters. The impact it's had culturally. It's a really surprise sleeper hit. Crazy stuff going on. I got Jay Sherer, I got Mr. Seymour Duck, and Slime Square in the house to discuss it on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Let's go. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Like I said, we talk about everything except the theme parks here. Today, we're talking K-pop Demon Hunters. It's taken the world by storm. We're going to talk about it. I have not seen it. Slimer has not seen it, but Mr. Seymour Duck and Jay Sherer has seen it. So we're getting a mixed perspective on the impact. Before we dive in, Jay Sherer, director and screenwriter, how are you today, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad to be talking with you guys about this. It should be really fun. I don't get to talk to Slimer and Seymour all the time, so it's always fun to be on the show with them. And thanks for having me on, OG.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I always love having you on. If you can let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Best place to find me on social media is YouTube and the How Stories Work with Jay Sherer channel. On that channel, you can actually see 2 trailers from the latest short film that I've directed that's coming out probably the next 4 weeks. So go over there and subscribe because we have trailers coming out every single week until we launch the movie. And it's all about paranormal phenomenon and alien disclosure. So if you're into that kind of stuff, make sure you're over at How Stories Work with Jay Sherer here on YouTube.
There he is. And you have the trailer, I believe, up. Is that on YouTube for the
2 trailers? There's 2 trailers. They're on YouTube and Instagram. So either place you can find them.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to link them right down below. They can find them right easy, right down below. I'll link the two YouTube ones down below.
Perfect.
So perfect. And we got Slime Square in the house. Slime Square with the awesome Back to the Future shirt. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I actually stole this from my wife. Don't tell her. All right. So I'm doing fantastic. I'm here to get this, provide an outside-in perspective. I don't watch K-pop. I'm not very into the K-pop cultural phenomena, but it's an important topic. So I'd like to get your guys' perspective of it, add it to my own, and maybe I can contribute something to the conversation. But you guys can find me on X at Slime Square, and now you can find me on Instagram. Yes, I am on Instagram now at Slime Square 84.
There he is. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised this morning. I got notifications. Slime Square following OG55. Like, oh, damn, okay, cool. We're doing this, right? And already out the gate, you're dropping heaters. I love the stuff you've already released, dude. Really great stuff. So make sure everyone follow him on Instagram.
Thank you. I'm trying to manage my social media time, so I think I'm just going to limit Instagram to Reels. So if you guys like Reels, that's where you'll find my stuff at.
There he is. And Mr. Seymour Duck, straight from the duck pond, Mr. Duck.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm excited to nerd out with you guys and talk about K-pop.
Absolutely. If you can remind everybody where they could find you, sir, on social media with your boo mug.
Yes, my non-copyrighted boo mug. Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck.
There we go. Alrighty, let's dive right in, gentlemen. We got some K-pop Demon Hunters. This was out actually a few days ago. K-pop Demon Hunters becomes Netflix's most viewed film ever. I mean, this is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. K-pop Demon Hunters has climbed up Netflix charts to become its most viewed movie ever, the streaming platform says. Since its release in June, the animated musical has been watched more than 236 million times. I mean, we're hitting theme park wizard numbers here. This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Overtaking the action comedy Red Notice to take the top spot in its latest in a series of chart-topping achievements by the film, which has become a surprise global hit. It's interesting because I am actually a huge K-pop music fan. I haven't seen this film in particular, but music I'm a huge fan of. You go to some of these groups, if you like Blackpink or aespa and stuff, some of their music videos on YouTube have like 1 billion, 2 billion, with a B. Billion views. I mean, the numbers for this stuff is absolutely insane. But Seymour, you actually brought this topic to my attention, so I guess I'll start with you, sir. What are your thoughts on this, man? I mean, we talked a lot about the impact of Japan with culture. We talked some South Korea too. But I mean, does this surprise you? Not so much, or what are your overall thoughts on this becoming the phenomenon that we see here?
If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the most viewed content ever shown on Netflix now as well. outpacing Squid Games.
Hmm.
So one movie is outpacing a whole series.
Wow.
That's insane.
This is like Disney level fandom that just keeps watching the movie over and over. And at one point, I'm not surprised. Then at another point, I am surprised because Sony sold this movie for $20 million to Netflix at a loss because the budget was over $1 million. And the movie became a success on Netflix. Not even Sony had faith in the movie.
I mean, I gotta be honest with you. If I was a movie executive and this came across my desk and I was like, I'm a K-pop guy too. I like K-pop a lot. And I'm like, K-pop Demon Hunters. Are you guys kidding me? This thing is gonna flop. This is gonna be popular on how bad it's gonna be, you know? And not only is that not the case, people love this movie. And Jay, I know you've given it high praise. I mean, it's a good movie from what I'm hearing. This thing has really crushed it. But Jay, I mean, I'll go with you and then I'll go to Slimer. I mean, what were your thoughts on like the success of this film? Now you've seen it for yourself and everything. I mean, how does it track with you? Are you surprised by this?
I mean, first of all, I'm not a K-pop person, right? Like, yes, I'll enjoy a good BTS song every now and again when it comes on, but I'm not like actively seeking it out. If you ask me like what songs were popular or what groups were popular, I would only be able to name the most popular of the groups, right? I'm not going to be able to name anybody else. I watched it because I had been hearing from so many people how good it was. And quite frankly, I didn't really believe it because there's nothing about it. This is what's so fascinating about IP in the modern day. Like you could tell me that something is Star Wars and I have a brand perception of what that means now, right? If same thing if I see Lord of the Rings, whatever. And so you hear K-pop, I have a brand perception, generally speaking, of what that is. But besides that, it's not a brand that I'm like immediately appealing to me, right? So I watched it just because I'd heard it was so good. And I will tell you, it's my favorite movie of the year. I did not expect, and we'll get into this as we talk more about this, but I did not expect it to have a fairly relevant, deep storyline. I also did not expect it to be as high of quality as the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because it's the same animation studio, right? It's that level of quality animation. Plus, you have the highest level of musical quality. This is a Lin-Manuel Miranda's quality production of music for what is in the story itself. So I was not expecting any of that. Was super pleasantly surprised. Great comedy throughout. So I think it's hitting multiple age ranges too, right? Like this is a story that if you're a little kid and you like to bop along with the music, you'll like it. If you're an older adult and you get into some of the more depth of the story and like what they're trying to say, you'll still like it. So it has a lot going for it, but on paper, as you said, the chance, I mean, it's obvious why Sony sold it for so little, because they're looking at like, well, direct to streaming animation does like okay, but it doesn't do like real great. It's unlikely we can release this in the theater, so we just better sell it to Netflix at a bargain basement pricing. And yet it's a super high quality film, and it overachieved over what its on paper concept even was.
Unbelievable. And Jay, when because we talk a lot in the text in the group chats and what have you, and when you mentioned that it was your favorite movie of the year.
Favorite movie of the year.
I mean, that blew me away. Slimesker, what are your thoughts on this, bro? I know you haven't seen it, but what are your thoughts, like, as well as I haven't seen it, but what are your thoughts from the outside looking in?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because this was not on my radar, and as you guys know, I would say I'm moderately into pop culture news and pop culture. I probably go to movie theater about 2-3 times a month, which I would say is probably on par with the average person, maybe a little bit more. I converse with you guys regarding pop culture and theme parks, and we're always talking about movies. And Jay knows I enjoy cinema. I enjoy what's going on behind the scenes. But K-pop Demon Hunter being the most viewed movie on Netflix just blindsided me from nowhere. And I guess I'm still at a point where I'm trying to wrap my mind around like who's the demographic? Obviously, I never heard of this because I'm not one of the target audiences, so nothing social media showed up for me. Obviously, there was anticipation for this film, but obviously, there's a captivated audience for this because there's a massive amount of repeats for this movie. So, explain to me, like, pretend I'm Bob Iger, okay? It's going to take a lot of imagination, but pretend I'm Bob Iger. Why, if I'm the Disney company, why do I want to incorporate something like this into my repertoire? What is it that Disney or Universal Studios or any other studio out there for that matter, what are they missing that Netflix obviously understands very clearly?
Seymour, that's a good question. What are your thoughts on it, Seymour? I know you follow both Disney and the Asian culture very, very closely with the Japanese, South Korea, and all that. What is Disney missing, or even like you were saying, Universal? Why can these studios, drop bangers like this, but the American studios are having a little harder time doing that?
I just think the Asian culture is getting a little bit more mainstream, and the first time I listened to K-pop was way back. I guess you can call me a normie back then when Gundam Style with Psy. Way back when it was a big deal, where it was like the number one, like 3 billion views in a video. Now that's like nothing. And I think it's just gone a little bit more mainstream, and people want something different, and people just like the culture, the music, right? You're starting to see it even in theme parks, and you're seeing a lot of the Asian culture unite. Even with I've seen pictures of, I forget the name already of that monster.
The bear at Halloween
the big
Horror
bear,
Nights.
yeah, he has his own concert in Japan, and I was watching the concert in Japan, and everyone's just watching it, and I'm just like, I'm fascinated by it, just by the music, the style, and it's now coming into America more mainstream. I'm looking at, I tell you all the time, I show you videos of these Japanese VTubers coming into America,
Right.
and they just did a show in New York, and it's packed, and they're just watching them, and they don't have they're watching a concert. They don't have their phones out. They're watching it, and they're having a good time. They're just loving the culture.
Well, it's crazy to me, Seymour, too, because it's funny because there's a lot of like this sort of like, and I hate to do this, but I mean, these boomer era IP is, I guess, the best way I can put it, where like you have Star Wars and even Marvel to a large degree. Marvel's been around for a while. These older IP, which obviously are still pretty popular. Obviously, Star Wars and Marvel still popular. But we are seeing some cracks in those, right? I mean, we have over the last few years, and then you see this other stuff coming into the picture with the younger generation embracing other stuff like this. Jay, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, what's going on? If I feel like, and I could be misreading things, but I feel like there is a shift. The stuff that maybe you and I grew up on that we treasured as kids, maybe not necessarily, hitting the same way with the younger kids. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you can do a lot of analysis on like what's going on, and there are definitely, you can look at trends and what people are interested in regard to trends. I'm going to come from it from like, are the stories good standpoint, right? Like, are people telling compelling stories that are meaningful to a generation of people? Here's where I'm going to get a little bit controversial. I told OG, he said, "Oh, Jay, we're going to talk about K-pop Demon Hunters. It's not controversial." I'm like, well, I'm going to make it controversial. I think that one of the things that Bob Iger has mentioned this several times about moderating, right? And we go, well, what does it mean to moderate? Especially because we haven't seen fully what that moderation means, because a lot of the projects that have been greenlit since he said that haven't come out yet, right? But one of the things that I think happened to Marvel, I think it happened to Star Wars, I think it has happened to multiple properties, is that in storytelling, stories don't exist if there's not some form of conflict that means that we're going to be paying attention to the stories, right? Sure. Conflict is the age-old purpose for storytelling, because what conflict does is our brains engage in conflict, and we go, what would we do given that situation, right? And the reason why stories are so valuable is because it gives us the ability to process that without actually experiencing it. We can process it, our brains process it as if it's actually happening, but it's not actually happening to us. So what would happen if you were, on a boat and there was a killer shark? Well, that's Jaws. What would happen if you were, if aliens attacked Earth? Okay, well, that's, Infinity War and Endgame or a bunch of the Marvel movies. So one of the things that I think started to happen at Disney is as they started to fall into what I'll call more progressive storytelling, is that they started to assess, okay, where do we want the conflict to lie? And in my opinion, what they did was they started to pick conflict that is not generally experienced or not well known from a general audience perspective. So let me give you a couple of examples. One of the common narratives from Disney was that the primary problem that female characters have is a problem with internal confidence. Okay, now, that's true. That's documented, by the way, that testosterone just happens to give males wild amounts of confidence, whereas estrogen doesn't give females as much confidence. It gives them a lot more nurturing ability, whereas testosterone doesn't give you that ability as much. And again, I'm painting...
Not to cut you off, but I just want to let I just had my physical, my testosterone is 760. So I just want to say, put it out there.
So you're good.
You're good. I'm good, bro. I'm good.
The Italiano has rubbed off on you enough that you're good to go.
I'm good.
So shout out to George, by the way. So the problem with that kind of conflict, saying you don't have enough confidence and you just need to have confidence, and if you just had confidence, you'd be excellent at something. Right. It doesn't actually sit well with a wide array of people, right? Because some people that have confidence go, well, I have confidence, but I still can't do the things that are in this movie, right? Or you might say, as a female audience member, you might say well, I've already overcome some of those confidence things, but just having confidence doesn't allow me to be a superhero. I have to do other things to be able to get there. So there's this, and so now I'm again painting in broad brushes here. Okay, I'm not saying that every single movie that's been about that has been bad or whatever, but usually you have to have something internal to the characters that you have to overcome. And when we watch that, we process that as we would want to process it. Oh yeah, that thing is weighing on me as well. How do I overcome that thing that's weighing on me? But if you don't have a lack of confidence, guess what? You don't associate yourself with that story at all. It's I can't see what you're talking about. This doesn't make any sense. And so I think that what they nailed in this film is that they nailed a group of female characters, all who are not suffering from a lack of confidence, but rather suffering from things that are much more important to the development of their character overall. They have fatal flaws. They have one of them is sort of been seen as the bad girl, and because she's been seen as the bad girl, she's kind of been pushed to the side. One of them is I don't know if I want to spoil the movie too much. One of them is dealing with a shame and guilt complex because of kind of what's going on in her life. There's very deep and meaningful struggles that these lead characters have to overcome. One of them is kind of seen as too much of a cutesy, kids oriented person and not seen as serious enough. So my point is this. That was very apparent in the history of Disney filmmaking. It was very apparent that those things were true. Right? You can go back into some of the best Disney films of all time. Ariel's not lacking confidence. Ariel's lacking good decision-making skills about whether or not she should join the human world versus the fish world and how that's going to come about. And she has her fatal flaw is naivety, that she just goes, and not only naivety and a desire that leads her to make a deal that she should not make with Ursula, right? So it's I really want this thing so badly that I've started to become infatuated with it, and the thing that I need to overcome is how do I reconcile my desire and a shortcut to achieving what I want, right? That's a thing that we can all gravitate towards. Oh yeah, I know. If somebody approaches me with a get rich quick scheme, I might fall for it because that's something that, I want to be rich too. Whatever it is, right? In other words, the conflict is meaningful, and the conflict is something that a lot of us deal with, and that's where you get 4-quadrant storytelling. I will tell you right now, K-pop Demon Hunters, despite the fact that the title is K-pop and Demon Hunters, which is speaking to fantasy as a genre, it still overcomes that by giving you a story about three women, and I would argue a fourth male character, all who were dealing with the stuff that all of us deal with. So the story is we instantly gravitate toward it. Then they give us the amazing visuals. Then they give us the amazing songs that, by the way, have a very intentional weaving into the story in a way that matters. They're not just songs that just are like, okay, let's stop the movie and now it's like a song. It's like the songs actually matter to the development of the characters. It actually, much like Hamilton, the musical, which is super popular, it tells us the internal monologue of the character and why they're struggling with what they're struggling with and how they're trying to think about it and deal with it. Frozen does that to a degree too, although I'll tell you right now, Frozen doesn't do it as well as K-pop Demon Hunters does. Wow. So it's even Frozen, right? Frozen is more about a character going, other people see me wrong, rather than it is about what that character's fatal flaw is and how she's going to overcome it, right? Now that's a wildly popular movie, but I'm just saying, like, that's part of like the error in storytelling that I think that Disney has struggled through, is that it only gives these one-dimensional characters one thing to react to. K-pop Demon Hunters is much deeper than that and much more interesting than that and has more things to say. And the animation is just mind-blowing because it's the same animation that we saw in Into the Spider-Verse, so with Miles Morales. So, I mean, I think that Disney needs to learn from this film. It's the thing we like about stories is characters overcoming something through conflict and overcoming an internal struggle through conflict. And the way that they think they're going to overcome that struggle and how they're pursuing that is often the wrong way, and they need to learn a lesson along the way where they can overcome it in a better way. I think that was what this movie does really well, and that's why Disney... So you're asking me like, well, okay, so Disney's just... In my opinion, Disney's relying on IP to get there. Sony said, we're going to rely on storytelling to get there. Sony... short-circuited themselves by saying maybe it's not good enough. We better sell it to Netflix for $20 million. When they should have actually stood up for it and said like, hey, this is a legit film and we should, because it's a really compelling story, we should release it as such.
It's crazy to me because you're right, Jay. Like the title would indicate something very niche-y, like K-pop Demon Hunters. Like this is a niche of a niche, essentially, from the title, right? Yep. And then you dive in there, and from what you're telling me, it's more like it's a 4-quadrant. Everyone can really get something out of it. So that's
easily 4-quadrant. Wouldn't you agree, Seymour?
Yes, but you actually remind me of a point that I wanted to discuss. Would this movie actually do well if it was in the movie theaters? Is discoverability because of Netflix? And that's why people gave it a chance. And because people gave it a chance on Netflix, because if you have Netflix, no additional cost, they were willing to see something new, and they gave it a chance, and it blew up. Because I'm noticing a trend in the movie theaters with a lot of newer IPs, where a lot of people don't have as much confidence to go out and spend their money. Sometimes they have legs, like Elemental, but then they do really, really well in the streaming. People are willing to watch it over and over, but then discoverability, people are not willing to spend money on new IPs. Do you guys think it would have done it better there? Or is Netflix the moat because of streaming? It pushed it out. Because that's what because even Sony didn't. Yeah, because not even Sony had the confidence of 20. Yeah, they sold it at a loss. Yeah. But now I'm hearing there's a sequel and then even a live action.
That is insane. But no, there's something to be said about that. I even said on top of the show, if this came across my desk, I like K-pop a lot. I like the music a lot. But if I saw this, I'd be like, I would probably do what Sony did. Like, come on, this thing ain't gonna do numbers. Like, this is like, So yeah, I could see that. But yeah, in theaters, people probably wouldn't have spent the money, because you got to understand, animation really struggles right now in the theaters, because animation isn't something that like a lot of people just go with like alone or with like maybe their girlfriend or something. A lot of it, most of the time, it's with a family. And the issue with that is that there's 3 or 4 people, sometimes 5 in the family. So you're talking $100+ to go to the theater. You know what I'm saying? So families, when they go for animation, they're pickier now. So that's why movies like Inside Out, I think, do really well. But this new stuff like Elio and the stuff that families really aren't sure of yet, it struggles because families aren't really, I don't think they're willing to shell out that kind of money to see it when they know in a month or so it's going to be on the streaming platform and their kids can watch it for free on Disney Plus and it can be on repeat as a digital babysitter essentially. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I agree with you, Seymour. If they dropped this initially in theaters, it wouldn't have been the hit it was on Netflix. That was definitely the Trojan horse, so to speak. What do you think, Slammer? Do you think that was part of the success? Is that it was direct to Netflix?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but I do have a more broader question, and I think it relates a lot to Sony. And what I want to ask you guys, and Jay, I want to ask you, and Seymour, I want to ask you next, is Sony not realizing that this is quality content that has a captured audience? Do you think this is indicative of a larger problem in Hollywood when it comes to realizing manga as a foundational storytelling mechanism, as a viable storytelling mechanism in the United States? Because I was doing a little bit of research before this show, right? And one of the things that I found is that manga outsells US superhero comics like 3-1. I mean, it's like not just domestically, or not just internationally rather, but domestically as well. Like 75% of all graphic novels and comic books sold are manga. You would think that your traditional U.S. superheroes would actually outsell the manga graphic novels, and it turns out that it's the other way around for several reasons. Primarily, they're more accessible financially. The amount of money you spend on a 100-page manga versus a 100-page graphic novel about U.S. superheroes is about half the cost. So for people just getting into novels and reading, the financial accessibility point is a lot lower. But secondly, and this is actually found even more interesting, and I found it to be true just based off of what I recall from the manga I used to watch back in the day, because I did watch manga, I just don't anymore. But one of the other main reasons is that U.S. superhero stories are considered to be juvenile by a lot of manga readers. They just don't relate to them, and I think a lot of that goes back to Jay's points. Is they're very shallow. There's not a lot of storytelling depth to them. They're not relatable in some kind of a fashion or another. They're not connecting the internal struggle with the outward struggle. So there seems to be a lot of either storytelling shortcomings due to, laziness, or maybe they don't, whatever it is. Maybe the superhero comic industry just doesn't have the financial resources to support, the better screenwriters or the better story writers, right? But so going back to my first question, is Sony dumping this to Netflix on a loss indicative of a bigger problem in Hollywood when it comes to manga being taken seriously as a storytelling mechanism? And then 2, is there any way out of this for Hollywood? Do you think that this is going to be a wake-up call, or do you think that Hollywood is really going to see this as a one-off anomaly? And go ahead and spin off your opinions based off of those 2 questions. I'm sure we can come up with some more inquiry into this, because I feel like this is very apropos. This like little microcosm is apropos of a larger phenomena.
What do you think, Jay, about that? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think most of Hollywood is asking similar questions, because I think Seymour's question too is, I'll answer both, but Seymour's question being, would this have done numbers in the theater? It had a production budget of $100 million. So Sony sold it at an $80 million loss, right? Which is crazy. Yeah. But I do think that what OG said is true. I think it would have been difficult for this movie to do numbers, but it's more so because of the changing nature of what our expectations are of why we go to the theater. And this is something that is not well understood, and it probably won't be well understood for another couple of years. But the reality is that like fewer and fewer people are seeing movies. This is indicative of the number of tickets sold per year. In fact, I just listened to an episode of The Town, Matt Bellany's show, where he talked to the CEO of AMC, and they talked about how AMC is slowly recovering from pre-pandemic or from pandemic levels of theater goers, but a lot of that is just in increases in ticket sales. The number of people is not back up to what it was prior to the pandemic. And I think that's like just changing consumer behavior around the fact of like, we before the show started, we talked about Slimer going to the theater and having basically people be on their phones the whole time and distracting him from the movie, right? Like,
Right.
as society has become a little bit more individualistic in a way that says, like, you can't tell me how to behave, I'm going to behave however I want to. The role of what do we do when we go to see movies, what is acceptable when we go to see movies, has changed. And so for those of us who are easily distracted and who don't want to experience that, I was telling the guys, I go, I only see movies in IMAX now because people pay more money and they're all going for an enhanced experience. So you don't see people on their phones in IMAX, and that's why I only go there. It's, by the way, it's also the only thing that's better than the TV I had, because when I moved into my new house, I bought a pretty nice TV. It's pretty big. And the sound, I don't have very good sound. So just that's a one bummer that I got to still fix. But the reason I'm saying this is because I probably would not have spent money to go see K-pop Demon Hunters in the theater unless all of you guys told me how awesome it was and I really needed to go. So word of mouth is still a thing. Now, I will counter that argument with saying, yes, but it would have also gotten a marketing campaign associated with it. Now, Sony saved a lot of money by not having that marketing campaign, but the counter argument that a lot of people are making, particularly theaters, is they're saying to studios like Netflix, look, if you release in theaters, and even if it doesn't do great in theaters, people will still go, oh, but it got a marketing campaign, and I want to see that. Oh, and it's on Netflix now. I should go watch it on Netflix. And so that'll actually trigger the algorithm, and then it'll send it off into... So I think what is happening right now is that there are so many disparate ways to make money off of films that it is unclear what the best ways to make money off of film are and how they should be released in association with that. And so I think that now the algorithm was huge in helping K-pop Demon Hunters. I mean, if the algorithm hadn't put it in the top 10, if I hadn't heard from multiple people that it was really awesome, I probably would not have watched it, because the fact that OG hasn't watched it tells you something, because he's like super into K-pop. And also a big nerd, and this is, to Slimer's point, a manga story, right? Like, this is a manga story. So I would say that to answer your question, Slimer, I think overarchingly the population will show up for the genre they prefer, the IP that they prefer. So that's why horror is doing really well, because everything that comes out that has a horror label on it does pretty well. Although I will say that there's been some missteps in horror. Jason Blum was on a podcast with Matt Bellamy on The Town talking about how Megan 2 failed, right?
Oh, yeah, big time.
But for the most part, horror can do still really well at the box office. IP can do really well at the box office. The problem is that there's still, I think, too much. What word do I want to use? There's too much variability and unknowns when it comes to what's going to make money. Now, I think we've overrated in the past about what we knew was going to make money. Because if you go back into the 80s, I think a lot of those movies are like, how would you have known that these movies would have done numbers? And so we kind of tend to think like in retrospect, and we only highlight the movies that we know did really well, and we forget about all the movies that actually did really poorly. So I think that there's like a rewriting of history we do in our brains. So movie making has always been difficult to tell what's going to make money. But I think that people are getting pretty tired of just putting an IP label on it. So to your point about why does manga outperform domestic known superheroes? Well, there's a couple storytelling reasons for that, to be honest, from my perspective, which is more of my expertise. One is characters can only go through so many arcs. You can't take Captain America through like 50 arcs. You know what I mean? I know he lives a long time, but come on. Like, he can only go through so many arcs, because when you formulate a character and you say, here are what the character's strengths are and here's what their weaknesses are, you can't just keep saying like they overcame the same weakness, they overcame the same weakness, they overcame the same weakness. People will just get tired of that and be like, well, I don't care about Captain America anymore. That's just not that interesting, right? So I think that people will go, the people who are not motivated by IP and the people who are motivated by story are going, people tell really interesting, compelling stories in manga, or I don't even know how you pronounce that. How do you pronounce that, Slimer?
Manga.
Manga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
But manga does. So I'm going to go read manga now. I'm tired of these juvenile Captain America for the 4th time is going through the same character arc. And I think that that's where a lot of people are trying to find. They're trying to find new stories that way as well. But I think that there is an insane amount of content now, and it's only going to get worse with AI. There's an insane amount of content. I can go watch YouTube and be just as satisfied as going and paying $25 to go watch a movie on IMAX. And so at this point in time, it's kind of like there are so many things that are fighting for my attention on a screen that it's almost impossible to predict what's going to perform. But if I'm betting, I'm going to bet on this is a really compelling story, and if it's told well, then I'm going to bet on that.
Now, in terms of AI, what you're saying is we're cooked.
We are so cooked.
We're
It's not even
cooked.
funny.
We're cooked. No, but in all seriousness, though, this success of this movie is even more impressive when you look at it through the context. Slimer, you linked a great video recently, and I want to do a reaction to it. Because I remember you saying it, you want to react to it. But the gentleman on that video was saying how times have changed, where Halloween feels different because we're not all collectively consuming the same stuff. Like for example, in the 1950s, Mickey Mouse Club. If you release that same children's show in this era, in 2025, would it be the cultural powerhouse that it was? Because back then, you only had, there was one channel like that you would watch with that stuff on it or whatever, or 3 channels or whatever it was. But now people got hundreds of options. So we don't have the same kind of like collective attention towards the one thing. Even when we were all kids in the 80s, it was the Saturday morning cartoons. We all watched the same 3 or 4 things every Saturday morning. But nowadays, kids can watch you can watch this anime, you can watch the Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks. There's 1.5 million things you can watch. So when you have something like K-pop Demon Hunters that has come in and taken everything by storm and has everybody watching it, that's impressive in this day and age, because that's not really that common anymore, So it's pretty wild. What say you, Mr. Duck?
Yeah, I found it interesting. In regards to manga, if I'm not mistaken, One Piece is outpacing any American comic book that's ever been released. It's the number one selling, and you get people like Samuel L. Jackson who says, "Yeah, I read it because the in-depth storylines." And you don't get that as much with the American comic books nowadays. But yeah, but in regards to the studios, it's kind of ironic because Sony has Crunchyroll. They are into the anime with the niche market, but I feel like it's expanding. I feel like it's going more mainstream than ever, and the studios, they will just have to adapt into change because now everyone can get a different variety of content. It doesn't have to be just anime. It doesn't have to be K-pop. It could be, your favorite IP from a video game, like Super Mario Brothers, for example. It's very popular now. But when they released their movie, it was really bad, the first one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But now, the studios are adapting. They're working with the video game companies. I hope they don't get oversaturated like they do with superheroes, because I'm starting to see that with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Mario, Zelda, a lot of movies. So I'm hoping the studios don't oversaturate it with K-pop as well. But I think the studios will adapt. They will have to adapt, or else they're going to lose a part of an audience, because now we have our own individual things that we like now, where before it's like, oh, we just listen to what Hollywood shows us and we'll like it. Now it's like, no, you have to listen to us. We like anime, we like K-pop, we like video games, we like K-drama even, right? Oh, yeah. And you even talk about people how Disney should do K-drama more and should do anime more, and it's like but they're not doing it. But eventually, if they want to get that audience, they eventually will have to.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised when I went to Universal Fan Fest back in April. I knew One Piece was popular. Obviously you hear about it, whatever, but I had no idea. When we were at that event, it was rivaling and maybe even surpassing the energy that like Back to the Future had for that event. I mean,
No, no.
oh, I'm telling you, bro. I know, it's crazy because I love Back to the Future. It's a
Right,
treasure, but
right.
it's like
Yeah,
every other person had the One Piece stuff on.
yeah.
I mean, they came out like the energy for that franchise is insane. And like Seymour was saying, I think it recently just surpassed in terms of like books sold, the Harry Potter books. And so,
Really?
yes.
Wow.
I mean, it's
That's crazy.
crazy stuff. Yeah, I did a video with Lucas about it like a month or two ago. I mean, it's wild to me that, I mean, and that's why it's like, this isn't like a lightning in the bottle kind of thing with this K-pop Demon Hunters. It seems like there's a consistent thing going on here where the storytellers overseas are doing something that is just missing out here. And, you know, and really, they should really, Disney really needs to look at that and go, what is the recipe here? Because there's something going on.
Well, I was just thinking while Seymour was talking, he had said something which just sparked a line of logic in my mind. So we know that personalized preferences drive algorithms. Okay.
Right.
And it's fair to assume that these personalized experiences, personalized preferences that drive algorithms are the reason that we have such congestion in the movie theater nowadays, right? I mean, there's just so much going on. There's these studios are continuously moving the release windows for movies. Oh, well, we got to move it again because this movie's coming out the next week, and yeah, there's just too many movies for people to pick from, which I think is a direct result of algorithms. Algorithms are driving the over complexity of these release windows for the studios. I think that's a fair assumption. Japan, Korea, they have the same problems, obviously, and I would probably even argue that they even have worse issues because social media consumption is probably even worse over there. We know it's even more detrimental to the youth. So how did they overcome that? I mean, if they have, and one could argue, we did with the Infinity War and Endgame. I think that there was the MCU came to a head where we all collectively, we got around this one storyline, and once it was over, we all went our own separate ways, went back to our own personalized experiences, right? But the Asian market is undergoing something very similar right now, despite the fact that they have all the same problems where personalized preferences drive algorithms. And this is something that, in my opinion, is I would say confusing Hollywood as to what people want, which is why they're putting eggs in every basket. And which is why now it's just a law of averages for them. Like if we take 100 shots, we're going to at least get, 90 of these right, or 50 of these right. And this is why we're getting such poor quality products, is because they don't know what people want, because they're getting feedback from everybody, what everybody wants. So they've overcome that to a degree, I would say, with One Piece and Demon Hunter, and I would say honestly the manga genre in general. I was looking up some numbers here, and internationally, manga's international value is about $16 billion compared to the US superhero market, which is only about 2.5 to 4. I mean, so you're talking about 4x multiplier in market revenue, net worth. So they've locked into something. Is the Asian market, Jay and Seymour, I mean, you guys are really in tune with Asian culture. Are they hungrier?
That's more OG. I don't know anything about Asian culture, to be honest.
Are they hungrier for original stories? Is it that the U.S. just likes what they're told to like? I mean, what's going on here? Is there a level of more independent thinking here on an individual basis that's turning into a collective phenomena? What's going on?
What do you think, Jay? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, so I don't know that marketplace like super well. I think what's going on though is that the one thing I do know about, especially the Japanese marketplace, is that they've been telling more unique stories for a longer period of time. You'll often hear we've actually, there was a time when I was younger when we were stealing all of their ideas and trying to remake them into American ideas. Like there was The Grudge that came out that was started as I believe a Japanese picture. It could have been a Korean picture. There was The Ring, I think, was very similar. So we were just copying what their horror was. But what I've always heard about that marketplace is that they've always really valued very offbeat but very intensely human stories where humans had to overcome things. So here's what I think is happening. And this relates to producers in the US. A lot of people I don't think a lot of people think about this until you get into the industry enough and know kind of how it works that you have to react to it. You would assume that Hollywood is much more like it's much more like a giant corporation or marketplace of corporations than it is like a bunch of creative people making a bunch of cool things. And there's a misnomer that like, oh no, Hollywood's like rewarding all of the most creative people for the most creative works. That's not true at all, right? The way that Hollywood works and the way that the only way to be sustainable in Hollywood is that you have to put forth products that are in demand by an audience. Just like any other business that exists in the entire world, it is not like, okay, who's the most creative? It's who's the most able to sell tickets. So if you start to put together like, well, what's going on here? Part of what's going on here is that I think that Hollywood Hollywood is still putting a lot. I just watched Lilo and Stitch last night, right? Because it just came out on Disney Plus. I watched the live action version of it. And outside of some comedic moments that I thought were very funny, it is, in my opinion, nowhere near as good as the original film, to be honest. I understand why it was popular, but I don't think anybody that saw that film, why are people going to see that film in droves to the point where it earns $1 billion? Because they know that the original cartoon was something that they liked and something that their kids liked, and I can go out and show up. So that's why Hollywood makes sequels and prequels and all of these things all the time. But it is not a merit-based system. It is, and so I would encourage everybody. I listened to a podcast recently, an interview with it's called Talking Pictures. It's Turner Classic Movies does this podcast, sponsors this podcast. Listen to the one where they interview Margot Robbie. You'll get a much better perspective of like what's going on in the industry, because she talks about how Barbie got greenlit the way that it was greenlit. It's kind of a miracle that it got greenlit the way that it was greenlit. It is $1 billion property, but without Greta Gerwig, that movie is most likely another Battleship, if you guys remember Battleship.
Unfortunately, I remember that movie.
Yeah. And so why would Hollywood make Battleship? Hollywood makes Battleship because people that grew up playing Battleship have some level of nostalgia to playing Battleship. Not because they got some great script on their desk and said, wow, this Battleship movie is the best movie that I've ever seen. So in other words, the decision-making criteria that exists by the studios is, how do we make money off this thing, more so than do we have a great property? Now, are they trying to get both? Of course they're trying to get both. But they're also trying to get both in a situation where, why does Lucasfilm keep hiring and firing directors and hiring and firing writers? Because they're trying to figure out what is going to hit at this time, and also, are these things good enough for us to release? And that's a very difficult thing to ascertain. So what Hollywood is looking at is, a lot of times they'll see if they can capitalize off of popularity as opposed to capitalizing off of great stories. And really what has to happen for movies to hit $1 billion, to go crazy, for us to really love them, is both of those things have to come together to some degree. Or you have something bubble up to the top because like K-pop Demon Hunters, it wasn't released. Sony thought it was going to lose money. They lost money off of it, right? And it just rose to the top because it happened to be awesome storytelling. So the studios did not believe in it, and the people said, no, actually, it's awesome. Like, we want more of that. So it's not as clear cut, and the decision makers are not all decision makers understand really good storytelling either, to be honest. And so they're making decisions based off criteria that are not what actually audiences are hoping to show up to see. So it's I can't say that it's like a very predictable thing. The key reason why sorry, I'm rambling too much, but let me just end with this.
No, you're good.
The key reason why making money off creative projects is very difficult is because in my day job, I'm in marketing, right? And I help a lot of startups grow based off what they're building. The core thing of what we look for, or what I look for when I'm looking at a company and whether or not they're going to do well, is has the company identified a need that people would be willing to say, I need this thing so much, I'm willing up to give money to get the answer to it. And the reality is, that's a very difficult equation. Sounds like an easy equation. Yeah, just make something that's really valuable and people will buy it. No. It is a very, very, very difficult equation to get right. But now imagine that you're in the creative capacity. Well, what's the need? People need entertainment. Fine. There's a billion options for them. What do they need on top of the entertainment? That's very difficult to ascertain. And what I think people need is they need stories wherein there's conflict, where their brain can engage and they can think about a concept, they can experience an emotion, but you're betting on things that are very intangible. It's not like I need to figure out how to get my taxes done, therefore I need a tax advisor, or I need a piece of software to go get my taxes done. It is, I need to escape. I need to think about a subject more deeply. I need to I need to figure out what I should fear and what I should not fear. How are you going to greenlight that particular thing and know that it's going to work? It's very, very, very difficult to understand that.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. And one of the things too, I'm a big K-pop guy. I like the music a lot. The production value is really high, right? Which helps, obviously, because if you're going to listen to music and you know, it has to be good, obviously. But aside from the good music, and I think one thing that the K-pop industry has really gotten right compared to a lot of American music labels and what have you, is K-pop, they really lean into their stars, but they make their, like with American celebrities or like American music artists, there's that feeling of like separation, right? It's like the fan, and then there's like you know, I don't know, like Taylor Swift, for example, or something, right? There's that disconnect where it's like she's kind of up here and I'm just the fan, you know what I'm saying? In K-pop, they sort of blur those lines better, like a lot of these girls, no matter how big they are, will get on like a Weverse Live and talk directly to their fans and on a live, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, or a YouTube Live even. It's like, that's unusual. For like American artists don't really do that. They're not regularly trying to connect with their fans like that, but it creates like almost like what we have here at OG55, like that community. And even if you don't really know this artist, this K-pop idol personally, you feel like you do. You kind of connect with them. It kind of creates this environment where you're like rooting for them to do well. Like, oh man, you know, because you feel like, oh, you know, this is someone that I feel like a connection with, right? Maybe a little parasocial, you know, toxicity, I guess. But that is what they offer, and whether, you know, I mean, right or wrong, that does, I think, help it, you know? And I think they've kind of cracked that code a lot better than American record labels, you know? I mean, not to say that American music isn't doing well. Like Taylor Swift is an example. I mean, she is doing amazingly well. But I just think overall, why you're seeing all these K-pop groups, you know, do the billion views on their music videos compared to like some American artists, I think is because of that. There's much more of that. They just have a different way of going about it than a lot of American record labels.
OG, are they talking like you sign into the live? Are they talking about politics and advocacy and all this kind of stuff?
No.
Okay.
It's a lot of silly goose stuff. They're usually just playing around with their fans, making jokes, you know, and it's fun. It's actually fun. You're right. It's not this whole like, you know, like political and getting all into the whatever, you know. It's a very casual fun. You would think if you were to watch these lives, this is just a normal girl or a normal dude, like BTS or whatever. You would think these are just normal people, and they're not even celebrities. Like we're like we're talking to us or whatever. So that's the appeal, is that they don't feel like hoity-toity Hollywood people. You know what I'm saying? And so you connect with them on a personal level, and then it makes their music even more attractive. Go ahead, Seymour.
I was gonna say that's actually normalized in the Asian culture. It's the idol culture, they call it. It originated in Japan and then expanded and exploded in South Korea. I idol culture where you have a deeper connection with the other person, right? So for K-pop, VTubers now, which is now exploding, you have a deeper connection with the other person, where they create content like music, or they're in a movie or a TV show, but then they also stream, and you can talk to them on a personal level. You can go on their live stream, like OG was saying. You talk to them, and they'll talk to their audience and listen to their audience as if you're like one of their friends. This deeper connection is normalized in those countries, and it's now expanding into the Western culture, I've noticed.
It's actually it's pretty brilliant, actually. I mean, if you look at it from a business strategy, right? It seems like the United States is still very corporate when it tries to ascertain what it is that their audience wants. Okay, so we're all going to watch a movie. It's only 80% finished, but we're going to do this exit poll, and we want to tell us what you think about this movie on 1 to 10. So there's a very corporate, cold, very cold corporate way of figuring out what our audience wants. And even when the U.S. market tells Hollywood directly what we want, it seems like even that's not taken very seriously, and we're very direct and forthwith. And it's not like we don't have a direct channel to them, but it's almost like because the communication isn't organic, either due to the fact that because there's that moat between its audience in Hollywood, right? Either due to that, or because everything has to go through that corporate filter before they can actually take anything very seriously. Hollywood still, like Jay was saying, they can't get a beat on what the audience wants, because either they're getting too much information, because algorithm drives their decision-making processes, and they have to filter through that before they can even say, all right, well, finances are going to give us this money to do this project because marketing this and this and this, right? But instead, the Asian market has decided, no, we're going to take an even more organic approach, and we're going to talk directly to our fans. I mean, like, how much more crystal clear and in touch with your audience can you get about what it is your expectations, if they're voicing any sort of like interpersonal issues, that is being communicated. They can get directly one-on-one with their audience, which is, I can only assume, going to guarantee not just a better product, but what is I'm trying to say? A more relatable, tangible, connected product, whether it be a song, and I don't want to say product, but we call it, creative product, like, let's say, product that people are going to enjoy more because they see themselves in it more, or they can relate to it more. And that, I mean, I didn't know that this was a thing, so I'm learning about it. And you can see my hamster wheel is spinning as I'm understanding this. But culturally, obviously, it's a very big difference. But I'm starting to see where the discrepancies are between Hollywood, this moat that they've created between, the Taylor Swifts and the, you just pick a Hollywood director or a Hollywood actor, doesn't really matter, and the stars over in Asia. That's incredible. I didn't know that was a thing.
I am very confused about why Hollywood has not adopted, because let's face it, the tech studios now rule Hollywood as much as the traditional studios rule Hollywood, right? You got the Amazon, you got the Apple. Now I know that Apple's not profitable, but Netflix is wildly profitable. Whereas you got the traditional studios like Disney and Sony, but I do not understand why the newer studios who understand prototyping, testing, learning, and redeployment have not figured out a way to say, like, look, let's create something that doesn't cost us as much money. We'll utilize that as a prototype to see whether or not an audience is interested in it. We'll generate awareness with a core set of people who then love it. So, like, let me give you an example. I thought this is what Marvel was doing. Clearly, they weren't. But I thought when they started to produce Werewolf by Night, I thought that was a prototype to say, okay, we'll prototype Michael Giacchino as a director. We'll prototype this this kind of like like Universal classic monster type approach to Marvel, right?
Yes.
Like noir film,
and we'll prototype that. And then, but guess what? People loved it, and they haven't greenlit anything related to it. So I don't understand why Hollywood, especially with the tech where it's at right now. You couldn't say, let's start to do smaller things see how it performs, and then if it performs, then we back it with money, then we go bigger. They're not doing that, and I don't understand why they're not doing that, because that is a staple of the tech industry and the business side, and has been for a really long period of time. I don't understand why that's not happening.
Yeah, no, it's mind-boggling to me that it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's out of touch. It really is. You know, it's wild to me. But Seymour, before we get out of here, any final thoughts on anything we discussed?
Yeah, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit with the idol culture.
Sure.
Yeah, Slimer, remember when I showed you that screenshot of 289 viewers? 289,000 viewers watching this VTuber that looks like a Playboy bunny. Yeah, that is the idol culture working its magic, where people have this deep connection with this VTuber looks like a Playboy bunny, and they're watching live. 289,000 people watching. I'm just like, what? And I'm looking at the donations. I'm like, 50 subs, 50 subs, 50 subs, 50 subs, 50. I'm like, okay. And then I got a sub. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's the dedication to that fandom. They just, that one-on-one deep connection with that person. In Japan, it's exploding, and now, and the company who's doing this, right, is now trying to do it in North America, and it's not working. And perhaps these corporations now would have to adapt to that as well.
Yeah, no, well said. We'll see how it all shakes out, but it's definitely stuff's going on, and Hollywood needs to take notice, because Asia is eating their lunch for sure, 100%. But Jay, it's always good to have you on, brother. I know you've been busy lately, so I do appreciate you coming on and taking the time and talking shop with us. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, you can find me at How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. Definitely go check out our trailers for Disclosure, especially if you're into paranormal stuff. The movie is, if you're a fan of the X-Files, you will be very interested in the film that we made, that we're in the process of making. And a huge shout out to the people who made K-Pop Demon Hunters. You did a fantastic job. If you haven't seen it, if you're like OG and if it's on your list, even though he's a K-pop fan,
right,
go watch the movie. You're going to really enjoy it. It's on Netflix, so you don't have to get in a fight like Slimer almost did with people. And it's a really solid made movie. So yeah, find me on YouTube, How Stories Work with Jay Sherer. Definitely go watch K-Pop Demon Hunters. It's worth your time. And then let me know what you think about it, because I would be curious as to see if you resonated with it as much as I did.
Well said. Slime Square, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, hey, thanks very much, OG, and thanks for allowing me to talk shop with you guys tonight. Very interesting subject. I'm definitely going to watch K-Pop Demon Hunters. Like I said, it wasn't on my radar. I'm not his target audience, obviously. But sometimes you gotta watch things outside of your comfort zone. So I will check that out. I'll definitely be giving you guys a report on that one. But thanks again for joining us, everybody. I really appreciate it. As far as where you can find me at, you can find me on X at Slime Square, and you can find me on Instagram now at SlimeSquare84.
There he is, Mr. Seymour Duck. Where can everybody find you on social media, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck. And also, I just want to state, with K-Pop Demon Hunters, for me, the review, it was just a good movie. Good movie with good music. That's it. By the time it ended, I'm like, oh, that's it? I wanted more. That was basically it for me. It was just good quality content, and I can see people just liking good quality content. And, in the industry, they've been missing that.
There you go.
One more thing before we go, G, I want to say, if you want to start somewhere with manga, if you want to start somewhere, if you haven't watched it at all, a good place to start would be Cowboy Bebop.
Okay. All right. There we go.
By the way, I was disappointed in the Netflix live action.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Don't watch the Netflix.
No. Watch the animation.
Yeah, for sure.
There we go. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for watching at home in this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Comment down below. Check out the trailers to Disclosure in the description down below. Check it out. They will be there. And thank you so much for watching this episode of OG55.
Thank you so much for watching OG55. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and become a member today.